Have you ever imagined that your greatest weakness could actually be your greatest superpower? At 40 years old, I discovered something about my anxiety that completely changed my life. And today I'm going to share this discovery with you because maybe it will transform yours too. For decades, I carried my anxiety like a heavy burden. It was that constant feeling that something terrible was about to happen. That knot in my stomach that had been with me since childhood. That mind that could never rest. I was the type of person who arrived 2 hours early to appointments because I imagined every possible delay scenario. I was the one who reread emails 15 times before sending them, who lost sleep thinking about conversations that could go wrong the next day. For years, I tried everything to get rid of this anxiety. Therapy, medications, breathing techniques, meditation, physical exercise, and look, many of these things really helped ease the symptoms. But I always felt like I was fighting against a fundamental part of who I was. It was like trying to cut off my own shadow. But then, at 40 years old, something extraordinary happened that changed everything. It was an ordinary Tuesday, and I was at work facing another one of those days where my mind wouldn't stop spinning. We had an important presentation on Friday, and my anxious brain had already created at least 20 different scenarios of how everything could go wrong. I was exhausted from fighting against these thoughts when my boss appeared with news. The client had completely changed the brief, and now we had only 2 days to reformulate the entire proposal. While my colleagues panicked, something curious happened to me. All those catastrophic scenarios my mind had created during the week suddenly became extremely useful. I had already thought about possible changes, already had alternative ideas, already knew exactly which resources we could use. Within a few hours, I had reorganized the entire project, while others were still trying to process what had happened. It was at that moment I realized my anxiety wasn't my enemy. It was my most advanced preparation system. In the following days, I began to observe my anxiety with completely different eyes. When it made me imagine my son could get hurt at the playground, instead of tormenting myself with these thoughts, I started to see that my mind was preparing me to be a more attentive and careful father. When it made me think about all the problems that could arise in a project, I realized this made me the most meticulous planner on the team. The big revelation came when I understood that anxious people like me possess 3 superpowers that most people do and have. First, we are risk identification machines. While other people enter situations carefreely, we've already mapped 15 things that could go wrong and how to deal with each one. Second, we have an extremely developed emotional intuition. We notice when someone is uncomfortable, sad, or needing help long before other people notice. And third, we are natural perfectionists, which means when we do something, we do it with an attention to detail that impresses. But the real transformation happened when I stopped trying to silence my anxiety and started using it strategically. I developed a simple but revolutionary system. Whenever my anxiety appeared, instead of thinking "here we go again," I asked myself, what is my mind trying to prepare me to face? If I was anxious about a meeting, I used that energy to prepare better, anticipating difficult questions and crafting convincing answers. If I was worried about my relationships, I used that sensitivity to be more present and attentive to the needs of the people I love. The result was surprising. At work, I became the person everyone sought when they wanted a complete risk analysis of any project. My ability to anticipate problems became my competitive advantage. I received 3 promotions in 2 years, not despite my anxiety, but because of it. At home, I became a more present and intuitive father. My wife always says, I notice when our son needs extra attention long before she notices any signs. I started helping other colleagues who also dealt with anxiety, and I discovered that when anxious people learn to channel this energy, they become exceptional leaders. Why? Because we care deeply about details. Because we anticipate problems before they become crises. Because our sensitivity makes us more empathetic and connected with our teams. The most powerful discovery came when I realized my anxiety was actually love in excess. I worried so much about things because I cared deeply. When I got anxious about my family, it was because I loved them intensely. When I worried about work, it was because I wanted to give my best. When I imagined negative scenarios, it was because I wanted to be prepared to protect and care for the people and projects that were important to me. This shift in perspective completely transformed my relationship with anxiety. It stopped being a source of suffering and became a source of valuable information. When it appears now, I receive it as an experienced advisor who is alerting me to something that deserves my attention. I'm not saying anxiety is easy or that we should romanticize it. There are still difficult moments. I still use relaxation techniques when necessary. I still seek professional help when I need it. The difference is that now I see my anxiety as a characteristic that, when well directed, makes me better at what I do. If you're an anxious person and you've made it this far, I want you to know that you're not broken. You don't need to be fixed. You have a more sensitive and sophisticated emotional operating system than most people. You just need to learn to use this in your favor. Your anxiety may have been trying to tell you something important for years, and maybe it's time to stop and listen. Start by asking a simple question. When your anxiety appears, what is it trying to prepare you to face? Use your tendency to imagine negative scenarios as a planning tool. Transform your emotional sensitivity into empathy and connection. Your anxious mind can be your greatest asset if you learn to work with it instead of against it. Leave it in the comments. Have you ever tried to see your anxiety from this perspective? Which part of this story resonated most with you? I really want to know your experience because each transformation story inspires other people to discover their own hidden superpowers. If this video made you rethink something about yourself, don't forget that that helps more people find this message. And if you want more stories about how to transform our apparent weaknesses into genuine strengths, subscribe to the channel because life is full of these surprising plot twists waiting to be discovered. Sometimes our greatest superpowers are hidden exactly in what we most want to change about ourselves.